afternoon. You're watching Businessworld Live. I'm Jes Delos Santos. Let's take a look at how the local bourse closed today, Wednesday. Okay, not much action in the main index here. Rally for a second day here for the PSEI, but price, at least for today, is more muted again. If you just put out the chart right here, you can see there was a last minute selling right before the session's close, erasing gains made earlier in the trading day. Again, the PSEI is up 0.1% to 6,890, but huge movements here, more evident at least among local stocks here, particularly among our telcos. Both giants here, PLDT and Globe, in fact, leading gains here for the main index. Globe at least is up 6.8% here, snapping 3 days of losses. PLDT, on the other hand, as represented by the upper chart right here, is up by 5.3%, advancing for a third day. This is optimism still running high after Maya Bank got a BSP license to be a digital bank. But also looking at our third telco player, Dito, you can see here they managed to at least halt 2 days of losses here as it rises today. This is they reported breaching the 3 million subscriber mark. Also, they announced that in the pipeline, they are at least opening 5 more areas to add to its services, currently in 14 locations. Also in the works is the rollout of its 5G home broadband service that is slated for the fourth quarter of the year. Dito, as you can see right here, is up close to 3%, now at 7 pesos and 88 centavos a share. But see, you have a lot of notable movements here among individual players here in the main index, one of which is AC Energy, the third best performer, at least for the main index today. That's up 4.25%. This after the energy player has been rated new hold at Unicapital. Also, not far behind here, Bloomberry, as you can see, is also in the positive territory, surging by 2.8%, cutting 5 days of losses. In fact, Bloomberry rose as much as 5% earlier, but gains tapered off as the session ended, according to Andre Soriano of AP Securities. The stock has slumped 27% year to date, and that makes it attractive for bargain hunters. Add to that, we now have better prospects, at least of the economy reopening and improving, and that seems to be boding well for Bloomberry, which ends the day at 5 pesos and 86 centavos apiece. Here are other headlines we're keeping our eyes on. The Asian Development Bank maintains its economic outlook on the Philippines, but notes that recovery remains delicate. In its updated Asian Development Outlook report, the lender said the country's economy will likely grow 4.5% this year, unchanged from their projection in April. ADB's outlook was within the government's projections, which was recently slashed to 4 to 5% from the initial projection of 6 to 7%. The ADB warns that although the economy is now on the right growth path, recovery remains fragile amid the threat of infectious variants. Still, the ADB believes that vaccination is key to a safe reopening of the economy, noting that growth is stronger in countries that progressed the most in controlling the pandemic. Meanwhile, MMDA Chairman Benro Abalos says Metro Manila's COVID-19 situation is showing signs of improvement just 1 week into the new alert level system. Abalos noted that active cases in the region dropped from more than 40,000 on September 15 to around 36,000 over the weekend. He also cited data from the Octa Research Group saying that the reproduction number in NCR has gone down to 1.03 as of yesterday from 1.9 a week ago. He said that once the R0 falls below 1, cases are expected to plateau. Around 3,000 families are currently affected by granular lockdowns in NCR. Now, despite these improvements, Abalos said there will be no changes in restrictions until after the 2-week period for alert level 4 has ended. After this, they are hoping for a downgrade to alert level 3. Also, a bill seeking to impose a value-added tax on digital transactions has hurdled the House of Representatives. A total of 167 lawmakers approved House Bill 7425, which proposes a 12% VAT on non resident digital service providers, such as online marketplaces, streaming sites, and social media platforms. These providers include Netflix, Facebook, Spotify, and Lazada, among others. House Ways and Means Committee Chairman Joey Salceda expects the bill to generate an annual revenue of up to 10 billion pesos. Also, a farmers group expects farm gate prices of palay to further drop in the coming months. The Federation of Free Farmers says palay prices were trading at 12 to 15 pesos per kilo, and this may continue its decline come harvest season in October and November. Latest data from the PSA show that farm gate prices of palay averaged at 16 pesos and 94 centavos per kilo in the first 6 months. That's nearly 3% lower than the same period last year. To address the issue, Agriculture Secretary William Dar is now urging local governments of top rice producing provinces to buy palay from their local farmers. What's causing this fall in palay prices and how is the sector planning to rebound? Let's get answers from the Federation of Free Farmers. We have on the show their board chairman, Leonardo Montemayor. Good afternoon, Leonardo.
Good afternoon, Jes. Good afternoon.
Oh, okay, so based on that report, you have the FFF reporting palay prices to be hovering around 12 to 15 pesos, whereas the PSA is reporting an average of close to 17 pesos, at least from January to June. Regardless, there's a decline. But is the situation on the ground really more different? How grave is the drop in farm gate prices of palay?
It's an extremely serious situation, Jess, because I calculate the break-even price for 1 kilo of palay to be in the vicinity of 13 pesos per kilo. So the prices now at farm gate are between 12 to 15 pesos per kilo. And that is validated by the Department of Agriculture itself.
Mhm.
In terms of actions that can be undertaken, especially come the main harvest in October to November, I would count among them deployment of more mechanical dryers, especially from the National Food Authority. Number two, we hope that we agree with the Department of Agriculture that the local government unit should also step up in terms of intervening in the purchase of palay from farmers at least the 19 pesos per kilo NFA support price. Because you see, the capability of the NFA to intervene is limited to its buffer stocking requirements pursuant to the rice tariffication law. In other words, beyond the buffer stocks that they need to procure, they cannot anymore go into a support price mode.
But
Okay?
first, give us an idea, sir. Is the situation that 12 to 15 peso price that you have at least monitored for your members, is this across the board or is the situation in some areas worse off than in other regions or provinces?
It's across the board. So you can have some places like, for example, I think Mindoro Occidental. It was reported by one group that the price of palay was down to around 10 pesos per kilo. But in other areas, it could be at the level of 15 pesos.
Mhm.
So depending on the location, it could be lower, it could be higher, but the range is between roughly 12 to 15 on the average.
Mhm. But how much of a factor is the ramping up of rice importation due to the enactment of the rice tariffication law?
To me, it's a significant factor just because when I interviewed one of our cooperative affiliates in Tarlac, the manager of that cooperative said that according to the local traders, they could only buy palay at that low a price because according to the rice distributors, they still have a lot of rice.
Mhm.
Most likely, these were the products of importation. And of course, since the RTL allows the importation of rice at any moment, even during harvest time, it is a kind of Damocles sword. So it somehow has a depressing effect in terms of the local palay prices.
Do I take it to mean, sir, that you are at least calling for importation to be limited or restricted, at least while harvest is ongoing?
Yes, but the problem, Jess, is unfortunately under the new law, the RTL, no restrictions are already possible except on grounds of quarantine or sanitary and phytosanitary grounds. If
Mhm.
there is a possibility, for example, the pest that might affect rice imports, then the DA through the Bureau of Plant Industry could impose restrictions for those types of shipments. But otherwise, you cannot impose a quantitative restriction
Mhm.
on imports as long as they follow the quarantine rules. So I
Mhm.
believe that unless the RTL provision in that regard is amended, we cannot really expect a reduction or restriction on rice imports come harvest time. The other recourse, which is available right now, is the imposition of so-called safeguard duties.
Mhm.
These are higher customs duties that can be applied unilaterally in the case of the Department of Agriculture for a temporary period to arrest any big surge in levels of importation that have caused serious injury in the form of low palay prices to our farmers. Unfortunately, the department, uh, under the prodding of the economic managers, has been unable or reluctant to impose these safeguard duties, which are allowed, by the way, under the World Trade Organization system.
Okay. Of course, sir, when we're discussing, of course, palay prices, we have to juxtapose that with the cost of producing palay. What's the production cost at the moment here in the Philippines, and how does it compare to our rice producing neighbors like Vietnam and Thailand?
It's roughly on a per kilo basis anywhere from about 12.70 to now. I would estimate around 13, especially because in the last 2 months or so, the prices of oil-based products, including fuel and especially fertilizer, have climbed tremendously. I think in the case of fertilizer, you have cases of urea and triple 14 going as high as 50% over the same price a few months earlier. So that's a very big factor why I think even our production costs have even gone up. And relative to our neighboring countries like Vietnam and Thailand, I think our production costs until now are probably about double that of Vietnam and
Okay.
a little
Now,
less compared to Thailand.
and that's where RSF comes in, the Rice Competitiveness Enhancement Fund. I mean, that is meant to at least lower cost of rice production. Are you feeling that on the ground?
There is some impact, but still not enough, because the rollout has been adversely restricted by the lack of personnel. For example, of PhilNec, which is
Mhm.
the DA agency in charge of the rollout of this machinery, and also, as far as I can remember, there is very little rollout in terms of, for example, mechanical dryers.
Mhm.
The mechanization, the equipment that has been distributed so far has tended to be more in the area of farm tractors, rotavators, combine harvesters, and so on. But I think very little, if at all, in the area of mechanical drying equipment.
Okay, lastly, Sir Leonardo, before we let you go, looking at data, at least for the month of August, you'd see rice inventory is lower compared to levels seen a year ago. Are we becoming less and less self sufficient when it comes to rice? And what's the best way to at least turn things around?
I believe, however, just that if we are to believe in the projections of the Department of Agriculture, they're seeing a supposedly a record harvest come the main harvest this coming the last quarter of this year. So we're looking at, I think, at about a 20 million plus million metric tons of palay, which would be a historical high. So
Mhm.
perhaps we will be able to reduce our levels of uh, kwan, uh, self or improve our levels of self-sufficiency, hopefully above the 90% mark.
All right, at least some sense of hope there for the sector. Thank you very much for your time this afternoon. Leonardo Montemayor, Board Chairman of the Federation of Free Farmers and the National Trade Union Center of the Philippines. Thank you, sir.
Thank you for having me, Jess.
And those are the biggest stories this trading day, September 22, 2021. Catch Business World Live again tomorrow at 9:30 a.m. for the market open and 3:15 p.m. for the market close. I'm Jes Delos Santos and we are One News. Mask on, wash hands, and stay safe, Philippines.